Welcome to the 40th lesson of SmartKnitter, Knit Instructions Level 2. In this lesson, we will talk about the techniques to amend issues caused by colors. The first example here is a whole cardigan panel with an empty middle stitch and neck bottom cast off. We can see that feeder 4 is brought in and out of the cast off section. This is because the float stitch symbols in the cast-off section is not in the Revell yarn color. Use the Color Change tool to change the float stitch symbols to color 7. Translate again, and we can see the problem is resolved. Let's look at another example with 5 color birds jacquard. Translate the original file. We can see that at the beginning of the jacquard, feeder 3 is missing. This is because the ending color and the jacquard color shares the same feeder slot. Change the ending color to the base color of jacquard and translate again. Now we can see that all 5 feeders are used in the jacquard knitting. In jacquard knitting, different color in the same zone cannot be put in the same feeder slot. If we want to use the same feeder, we have to change the colors to one single color. Let's look at another example with partial jacquard. Translate the original file. There is a prompt warning collision of feeder 3. We can see the feeder movements for feeder 3 is incorrect. It is being brought back and forth with tucks within the jacquard section. Back to SmartGraph. Feeder 3 is knitting the main color of the panel body. To avoid feeder 3 from being brought back and forth without knitting, it is better to draw 1 to 2 stitches width of the main color at the edge of the partial knit section. Translate again. Now the knitting action is correct, no excess floats. Let's look at another file with 4 color stripes. Translate the original file. There are only 3 feeders knitting in the body section. Go to Feeder Setup. Only 3 sets of feeders are set here. Select the panel area. Click the tool Color Percentage. Check the option Display Use Color Only. We can see that one of the color is color 27 in black. This is a special color used to display the text in the SmartGraph file. The system would automatically ignore this color during translation. Select the entire stripe area, use the Change Color tool and change color 27 into another color in the palette. We are changing it into color 4 in this example. In the feeder setup, we can see the 4th color feeder has appeared. Drag the feeder chip to appropriate slot. Translate again, and now the panel is knitting in 4 colors. Move on to another panel example with float jacquard. Upon translation, we can see that there is excessive floats in the partial knit shoulder sections. Back to SmartGraph. We can see that the jacquard pattern is not filled to the edge, causing color red feeder being brought in and out of the panel repeatedly. Insert a row before the last revolution, select the pattern repeat, and fill the entire shoulder section. Check the zones to make sure it is not changed. Translate again. Make sure the jacquard backing on both zones are checked out. Now the knitting sequence is correct. Let's look at another example with bird's eye jacquard. Upon translation, we can see that there's a lot of tucks and floats, bringing the feeders back and forth within the knitting area. Back to SmartGraph. Select the jacquard graphic. Use the color percentage tool to check the colors used as shown before. We can see that the special color 27 is used in the graphic outline. Change color 27 into another color. Drag the new feeder chip into the appropriate feeder slot. Translate again. Now the main body section is knitted correctly, but the right shoulder section is in single jersey instead of jacquard. This is because only the main color is present in Zone 2. If we need Zone 2 knitting in jacquard as well, we need to manually add all the colors used to Zone 2. Copy a section of a jacquard with all the colors to the edge of Zone 2. Make sure the zone is set correctly. Drag the new Zone 2 color feeder chips to the appropriate slots. We can use single feeders set to knit both shoulders. Set the Zone 2 to the correct jacquard backing. Translate again. Now the entire panel is knitted in 4-color bird's eye jacquard. This marks the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching.